ate my gymsuit. Chapter 3. Things got better at school after that, at least for me. For a while, some of the kids were mad at Joel for spoiling their fun, but a lot of the kids were glad that everything had settled down, and we started doing some really neat things in class. There was a lot of writing, but I liked to do that. Sometimes it is easier to write things down than it is to say them out loud. Miss Finney said that to communicate is to begin to understand ourselves and others. She wanted us to be honest in our thinking and to write well. That's really hard, to be honest and remember things like commas and paragraph structure and stuff like that. The really nice part is that she never asked us to discuss anything that she wouldn't discuss herself. One day we had to write about the things that bothered us. Miss Finney stood in front of the class and said, "I remember that when I was a kid, I used to be so embarrassed because I wore braces on my teeth and everyone used to call me Tinseltooth." That may not sound important, her telling us that, but it made it easier for us to write about and discuss things that bothered us. You know, like mothers who insist on being Girl Scout leaders when you don't even want to be a Girl Scout. Falling down steps when you're trying to make an entrance, bad breath, having to take your younger brother to the movies, aunts and uncles who keep asking if many people shoot up marijuana, dumb stuff like that. It surprised me how many people had problems. I'm sure that lots of people had more trouble than we talked about, but Miss Finney was careful not to let it get too personal. One time, she talked about some guy named Marshall McLuhan who wrote about people getting turned on by music and films and stuff. Then Miss Finney turned off all the lights and put on a whole lot of light boxes that blinked on and off and turned on an album real loud and told us to experience it. She said she wanted us to decide for ourselves whether this type of thing was an escape or a way to really get involved. It was really neat. But then the vice principal, Mr. Goldman, walked in and called Miss Finney out of the room. When she came back in, she looked very upset and put the lights back on and stopped the lesson. We also put on a play. Miss Finney asked me to be assistant director. That was very hard for me. I had to get up and walk around the room and get stuff ready. I always feel safer sitting behind the desk where nobody can see my body. But Miss Finney asked, and it would have been hard for me to explain to her why I did not want to do it. So I did. It ended up being okay. Don't get me wrong, Miss Finney wasn't perfect. She never got reports back on time. She gave hard tests, and once in a while she got mad. She also did weird things like holding on to a piece of chalk, forgetting what it was, and trying to smoke it. Sometimes she let kids get away with too much, but she really tried. And we all really dug her. In the beginning, some of the kids were worried because they were afraid they wouldn't learn what they had to know to pass the college entrance exams. Other kids thought that Miss Finney was just plain weird. But eventually, we all said that we did learn. We wrote more for her than we had ever written before. She never gave true, false, or multiple choice tests. I think most teachers like them because they're easier to grade. Instead, she made us write our own interpretation of what we'd read. She brought in all kinds of books to read, and a lot of us bought paperbacks from the book club. It was like a celebration the day the books came in the mail, and Miss Finney sorted them out and gave them to us. I spent most of my allowance on books. We shared and swapped them. I feel like I'm addicted to the printed word, like I need a book fix when I get upset. We talked about poetry and current events and plays and movies. Miss Finney knew an awful lot, and she made us feel that we knew a lot too and were important. She really listened. It was amazing. And she didn't talk to us just in English class. During her free periods, she'd walk around the school and drop in on some classes like home ec and shop and art classes where there were times that she wouldn't be interrupting other teachers. She'd taste the food that the kids made, admire the sewing, and look at all the projects in shop. It made everybody feel good, like she knew that there was more to us than just the time we spent in her class. One day she came into my gym class. I had just told Schmidt that my little brother had misplaced his security blanket and was now using my Gymsuit instead. Miss Finney looked at everybody playing volleyball and then came over and sat down next to me. Hi, Marcy. Hi, Miss Finney. Who's winning? The blue team. Don't you feel well? I'm okay. Why? Just wondered. We sat and watched the game for a few minutes. I didn't know what else to say. She turned and said, I'm going to ask Miss Schmidt if I can play. I'm a real clod at volleyball, but it's fun. Do you want to play too? I shook my head, looking at me as if she wanted to say something else. She just smiled and walked over to the game. Schmidt obviously said that she could play because she took off her shoes and joined the red team. She really was bad. When someone hit the ball to her, she ducked. When she served, she didn't always get it over the net, but she looked as if she were having fun, making up her own rules as she went along. It's a do-over. I forgot to call it the score. English teachers get an extra serve. People named Barbara get 2 extra serves. Someone yelled across the net, Hey, Ms. Finney, just pretend that the ball is a direct object and our team is the indirect object. Miss Finney smiled and volleyed. The ball just missed hitting Nancy on the head. Nancy turned around, laughed, and yelled, She said the direct object, not a dangling particle. Schmidt blew her whistle and said, Everybody hurry up into the showers and then get dressed. Miss Finney yelled, Thanks, everyone, for letting me play. Then she came over and said, That was fun. I just smiled at her and followed the rest of the kids into the locker room. One day in class, Nancy raised her hand and asked Miss Finney if we could do more about how we felt inside. Miss Finney thought about it and said that we had to use the class time to do what was in the syllabus, the guide that schools give teachers. She said that she felt a responsibility to go over the assigned material. After thinking a while, she smiled and said, Why don't we start a club after school? That'll work. I'll tell my other classes, and you tell other friends. We'll start Monday after school. That's how Smedley got started. End of chapter 3.